through the calendar year 2024. Brought up a lot of really interesting topics. So when we look at, James, from a Dynatron perspective, we support over 4,100 dealerships. We uniquely get their transactional repair order data that's closed the night before that comes over on a secured API. So thinking about what Rick talked about, share with us a best practice. It sounds like around service advisors would be a great area to talk about that really has an impact, not only on fixed ops profitability, but on retention.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, what Rick brought up, and he said it earlier, we got to get back to understanding that service is sales with the way the industry and the way that everything has been in 2024. Coming back into 2025, we really need to have a sales mindset in our service department. So I want to talk real quick about some best practices of how do we compare service to sales? What's that process look like? What are some things we want to keep in mind? So if you flip to the next slide, you know, uh, if we all agree, right, number of appointments, number of number of demos, desking deals, closing ratios, all of these things listed are part of the sales process and sales metrics that I guarantee you most general managers know, right? You ask them at any point in time, hey, how many deals did you desk? Well, now I want to take that and I want to correlate it to service department. So sales department, number of appointments, right? Service department, we should remember number of appointments as well. How many customers are we expecting in today? Number of ups, right? Same thing, number of ups. How many customers came across my drive that I have an opportunity, right, to sell maintenance, a menu service maintenance to? Number of demos, right? So number of demos. In this case, we would look at number of done, right? So menus closed, right? Did we upsell that menu? Desking deals, creating an estimate, right? Creating a multi-point inspection, making sure that we've done a really quality inspection of the vehicle and we have recommendations to talk to about our client. Closing ratio, same thing, right? Closing ratio, whether that's menu or the multi-point inspection, do we understand what our closing ratio is in service? Because I guarantee we know what it is in sales. F&I back, product penetration, same thing, service menu product penetration, right? If the menus that we've written, if we have maintenances that are due, what's our penetration in those key maintenance menus? So number of BBACs, number of repairs postponed and declined. Like if we aren't tracking declined repairs, there is a lot of revenue that we are potentially never getting back in our doors. So front end gross, back end gross, right? We want to look at maintenance labor gross and repair labor gross. And then the last thing, right? Gross per new used vehicle retailed, gross left on the table. We want to look at that the same way. Gross per RO retailed and gross left on the table, right? And I feel like most operators on the left-hand side are extremely comfortable with that information. We really need to see a shift in 2025 that on the right-hand side, we become just as comfortable with those numbers. So once again, first steps into changing our mindset, right? So if we remember, right, number of appointments, number of ups, number of dones, number of completed MPIs, closing ratio for technicians, menu, all those things, right? Before we can really change the mindset of our team, we really need to ask and answer three difficult questions, right? Sometimes we ask ourselves, but we don't really want to answer, right? We need to answer. And if the answer is no on either of these three, we really need to evaluate what our next steps are before we start to implement this mindset change. So our first question is, what technology do we have in place to make the process for these items as efficient as possible? Like, think about it, right? How easy is it for our clients to set an appointment at our dealership? What visibility do we have into it? How easy is it for our service advisors to present a menu, to complete a repair order, right? To look at a multi-point inspection, to provide that multi-point inspection to a customer, right? How easy is it for us then to not only document declined repairs, but then market to our clients? And then ultimately, analytically, how easy is it for me to really understand when I'm pushing from gross profit to money left on the table? The number two is, do I have a documented training plan for my team on how each metric is to be achieved? right? We talked, and I think it was our first one where if you don't have a process, you have a process, right? Just like if you don't have
Yes.
a policy, you have a policy. So, documented training plan, right? How are we going to get the number of appointments that week? How do we get the number of ups, right? How do we then have the closing ratio we needed on multi-point inspections? How are we going to attack the client repairs? Everything has to be documented, has to be trained to, has to be coached to. And lastly, what reporting and visibility do I have for each metric? And how often do I review these with my team? Because it's great that I can say, hey, I want 20 appointments a day. But if I can't see it, I don't have visibility and I can't report on it. I mean, what is it? Hope's not a strategy, right? So, number of ups. Once again, all of these items on the front end, we know for a fact you're able to see and you manage it, and most of it's right there in front of you. So the question is, in service, do you have that same visibility? Do you have that same reporting to answer to help your team? So as we start to shift the mindset in 2025, that services sales, we have to look at technology. We have to look at a training plan. And we really have to look at visibility, whether that's through analytics, reporting, somehow, because we could set expectations for all of that. But once again, if we can't answer these three questions without saying no, we're going to have some roadblocks.
Thank you both so much for not only sharing the trends that we're seeing from the financial statement side from NCM, but also a tangible best practices that really drive fixed operations profitability and retention. And we know in 2025, compression of margin, headwinds that we keep hearing and talking about, we all just got back from NADA, is understanding how critically important fixed operations is going to be to overall gross profit for the dealership and for our dealer groups. I want to thank you both so much for taking your time today. If you would like to learn more information, please just hover over the QR code, give us some basic information, and we will reach out to you. With that, we want to thank you for joining us for our 2024 year-end Fixed Operations Insights brought to you by Dynatron Software and NCM Associates. Have a great day.